Hello everyone and welcome back to Roby and Amelia's Adventure. I'm Mariah. This is my channel where I talk about and share my twins, Roby and Amelia, with you. And today is World Down Syndrome Day. It is March 21st and that we celebrate my son and all of his friends with Down syndrome today because they have 3 copies of the 21st chromosome, and we celebrate it today because the date says it all. So in today's video I'm going to be talking about 10 common misconceptions of Down syndrome, and I'm not going to hold you in suspense. We're going to start now. The first one is that Down syndrome is hereditary, and it's something that is passed on from generation to generation, and that's not the case. It's something that when your baby is conceived, it's just an automatic thing. It's nothing that you could prevent, and there's nothing that you can do to cause your baby to have Down syndrome. There's 3 different types of Down syndrome. There's trisomy 21, which is the most common, translocation Down syndrome, and that is the only one that is hereditary, but it's only 1% of all individuals with Down syndrome have that. And then there's mosaic Down syndrome, which is the most rare. And I did want to put this one with the first question, so really it's 11, but I'm going to count this one as 1. And that is that kids with Down syndrome are only born to older women. And that's not true. I was 28 when I had my kids and we hit the lottery with my son, and most babies with Down syndrome are born to women that are younger than 35, and that's simply because women under 35 are having the most children, and really you can't really base it off of your age. It's you hit the lottery or you don't win the lottery, and that there are about 6,000 kids born every year with Down syndrome, and those are 6,000 very lucky parents. Number is that all people with Down syndrome have a severe cognitive disability. And in most cases, an individual with Down syndrome has a mild to moderate cognitive disability or intellect, however you want to say it. This delay does not in any way limit a person in something that they're really good at, because anybody can be very good at one thing and not so good at another, but we don't label them because of that. We don't say that's the math genius, but hey, you know, spelling is not so good. We don't do that. So we shouldn't be lumping someone with Down syndrome and say that they aren't going to amount to anything because it takes them a little bit longer to learn something. Number 3 is that segregated classrooms and segregated special education is the only means of education for a child with Down syndrome. Studies have shown that individuals with Down syndrome and individuals with any kind of special need, they thrive in a classroom with their typical peers. In most schools, that they might be taken out of the classroom for a little bit to go to a therapy or have some one-on-one where they will work with somebody. But in some schools, that specialist will come to the child in the classroom and work with them there, so they're not being taken away from their friends. Number 4, and this is the most common one that we get almost anytime someone sees our son, and that is that individuals with Down syndrome are always happy. And yes, They might smile and be happy with you because they feel the love and attention that you're giving them, but they feel every emotion just like anybody else. And let me tell you, we are in the middle of the terrible twos, and our son is absolutely showing us that he can throw some epic tantrums. Number 5 is that people with adults with Down syndrome are the same as kids with Down syndrome, and that's not true. Adults with Down syndrome have every want and desire as anybody else that is their age. They want to go out to the movies with their friends. They want to go to prom. They want to get jobs and move out and get married just like anybody else. Just because they have Down syndrome does not mean that they will always be like a 5-year-old mentality or anything like that. Number 6 is that individuals with Down syndrome are unemployable. Yes, it is not uncommon for the majority of individuals with Down syndrome to be unemployed, but there are many places out there that are hiring people with all kinds of disabilities and showing the world that it is okay to hire somebody that's a little bit different and put them in a situation that they can excel at. There's a lot of places opening now that are specifically hiring people with a disability. There's Biddy and Beau's Cafe, where all of the employees there have Down syndrome or another kind of disability. There's John's Crazy Socks, which is a company run by an individual with Down syndrome that makes fun socks. There's Madeline, who is a model and has been walking in New York Fashion Week and has been in several high fashion magazines, and she has Down syndrome, and she's showing the fashion world that she can work and book jobs just as easy as anybody else. So no, they are not unhireable. Number 7 is that individuals with Down syndrome will need to live with their parents for the rest of their lives, and that may be for some people, but in a lot of cases when they're older they can move out into an apartment or a house and live on their own. And I think that is a great tell of great education and great job for the parents, teaching those life skills and making sure that their kids are ready for everything that life has for them. Number 8 is that people with Down syndrome die really young. And in the 1980s, that was the case. People with Down syndrome were only given a life expectancy between the ages to live to the ages of 20 and 30. And now in 2019, it is between the ages of 60 and 70. And when in another 20 or 30 years, like, that is just expected to go up and up and up. And that's mostly due to the medical field and being able to detect things really early and treat them and make life better for everybody. Number 9 is that people with Down syndrome are always sick. Yes, they do have a chance of having more things wrong with them, but that has nothing to do with them having Down syndrome. They can have a congenital heart defect, they can have respiratory and hearing problems, and they can have thyroid problems, and everybody can have those. It's not just because they have Down syndrome. Yes, it's more common in people with Down syndrome, but it's not just because they have 3 copies of their 21st chromosome. Number 10 is that parents with Down syndrome will not have a support system or a community that they can connect with. And when our son was born, we kind of, or at least I felt like we were alone in our situation and nobody else was going through what we were going through. And then a couple weeks after they were born, we went to the Columbus Buddy Walk, and we were surrounded by thousands of people that were there supporting their family members and people that they knew with Down syndrome. And that was so wonderful to see and to know that that community was there and we really weren't walking this walk alone. And last year, the Columbus Buddy Walk had over 12,000 people there, and every year it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and this year, who knows, we might have 15,000 people there. But that's it. That is the 10 common misconceptions about Down syndrome that I have for you. If you are a new parent that just received a diagnosis of Down syndrome and you're not ready to celebrate World Down Syndrome Day, I just want you to know that that's okay. There will come a time where you're comfortable and at peace with the diagnosis, but I want you to know that it's okay and it's totally normal to be feeling that way. So thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you guys in our next video. Bye.